Alright, in this video I'm going to be talking about open-handed drumming and why I believe it's kind of a mistake for most drummers to practice open-handed drumming. First, let me explain exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? Open-handed drumming. First of all, the traditional way of playing the drum set is with the right hand on the ride cymbal, left hand on the snare drum, bass drum played with the right foot. And then when you play your pattern, let's say I was going to play a rock pattern, you play it this way. Now, if I wanted to play on the hi-hat, I just cross my hand over and play this way. So it's the same thing basically. Now, open-handed drumming means that you do not cross your hands. So a lot of drummers practice this way. They practice with the left hand on the hi-hat. And so that's basically the definition. So some of my thoughts on the matter. First of all, the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line. And I feel like your first and most important goal on the drum set should be able to function in a band on the instrument. You should be able to play grooves and beats comfortably in lots of different styles: rock, country, blues, jazz, reggae, etc. And this is simply easier by using the same hand and patterns on the hi-hat as you would on the ride cymbal. And this way you don't have to learn to play the same patterns twice. So that's the first thing. The other thing to understand is biologically the right side of your body is connected in your brain. So if I go to hit the ride cymbal along with the bass drum, I'm playing my ride cymbal with my right hand, my bass drum with my right foot. That's actually easier than this is. Because that's the case, I believe it's more natural than playing your left hand on the hi-hat and your right foot on the bass. The other thing, okay, my other thought on this is the way you learn to improvise on any musical instrument is you put certain patterns into place first. For instance, on the piano, pianists learn very specific scale fingerings. And they practice these over and over until they're automatic. And then when they go to play, to improvise, they don't have to think about what fingering they're using. And they develop muscle memory this way. If they had several fingerings for every scale, every time they went to play something, they would have to think, okay, what fingering am I going to use? And that would actually slow their creative process down. It works the same way on the drum set. So if you set up automatic patterns and then you hear something, you can automatically play it. If you have to think about it too much before you play it, again, that's going to slow down the creative process. Another point, not only is it harder to learn to groove and play beats using the open-handed method, it's also harder to learn fills. Because especially for a beginner, I teach what I call a right-handed lead. This is not a new idea, by the way, but basically you're playing all your eighth notes with the right hand. And so if I go to play, and I fill in the other hand with 16th notes. So if I wanted to play, that's a right-hand lead. Your right hand's always playing the same notes. That's an easier way of learning to play than hand-to-hand. Right-hand lead is, it's one method of sticking. A lot of symphony players use that method because they get a more consistent sound. It's actually easier, again, coordination-wise, than it is to learn hand-to-hand sticking all the time. So again, we're talking about the shortest distance between 2 points. We're talking about learning to function and sound good on the instrument as quickly as possible. Not that the other way won't work, but I'm talking about the easiest way of learning to play. Let's see here, what else? People talk about crossing your hands as if it's a real problem. They say, well, the reason I don't want to do that just feels awkward. It just doesn't feel natural. I don't see this as a problem. I've been playing the drum set my whole life. I don't see this as a problem at all. The only time my hands are crossed is when I'm playing the hi-hat. as soon as I'm done with the hi-hat, my hands uncross. You know, sometimes people will say, well, it's easier to play the toms if your hands are uncrossed. You know, again, I don't see that as a problem. I can play underneath my right hand with no problem. You know, it's really not difficult at all. Certainly not difficult enough to learn a completely new way of playing the drum set, in my opinion. But if it's a problem for you, you can always raise your hi-hat a little bit so it's not in the way, but again, not a big deal in my opinion. What else? I also wanted to point out, this is the way, you know, most of the famous drummers played. Buddy Rich, Tony Williams, Stuart Copeland, they all played right-handed with their hands crossed. And again, these are some of the greatest drummers in the history of the instrument. And many times when people talk about the open-handed method of playing, they talk about some of the great drummers who play that way. Like Billy Cobham. Billy Cobham is an amazing player, of course. But the simple truth is, this is a very unorthodox way of playing the instrument. Most players who play this way were self-taught. They learned to play that way literally because they didn't know any better. And while I won't argue that this can work, I still don't feel it's the best way for most people to learn. Personally, I did quite a bit of practicing open-handed, off and on, you know, for a long time. I stopped practicing that way, though, because I eventually decided that there were not any benefits for me playing that way. And if you watch drummers who do play left-handed on the hi-hat, they're usually playing the same exact patterns that right-handed drummers are playing. So it really doesn't add anything necessarily from a creative standpoint. Personally, I decided I eventually had more important things that I needed to work on. I probably could have called this video 100 things that are more important to work on than open-handed drumming. You know, I've been playing the drums professionally my whole life, and believe me, there are always things to work on. These could be styles that we're weak in. It could be working on reading skills some more. It could be working on playing odd time signatures, learning more Latin or African rhythms, maybe learning some double bass, maybe becoming a better soloist, maybe working on your brush playing. So, you know, to sum all this up, I think the question you need to ask yourself is, first of all, how fast do I want to sound really good on the drums? And if you are already a really good drummer, then ask yourself, well, what do I need to do to become a great drummer, and how soon do I want to get to that level of playing? And my experience has shown me that the traditional way of playing the drum set with the right hand on both the ride cymbal and the hi-hat is the quickest way to achieve these goals. So that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.